myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Mick Lewis joins me, as always. Good morning, Mick.
Morning, Steve.
Good to see you, mate. Breaking news then, Newcastle have put a bid in £40 million for Leicester's James Maddison. Rejected. They obviously want a bit more money. The player is led to believe to fancy a move to Newcastle. The agents have certainly encouraged Newcastle to put the bid in. What do you make of that?
Well, my first reaction was I would imagine there is very definitely a possibility in this, as much as anything, because the Maddison relationship between his football club and himself has been a bit strained of late. He's not been the most popular player in the world for supporters. I suspect that the club themselves have probably been a bit impatient with James Maddison, because he went from being what was an absolutely phenomenal player. What was it, a year, 18 months ago, maybe slightly later than that. Obviously, COVID sort of distorted everybody's thoughts on the game. But at one point, he was a top player. I would have had him in England sides well ahead of two or three players who seem to be ahead of Maddison by Gareth Southgate in the popping edge. So I think Maddison, once upon a time, was a real top player, and as a result, at that time, yes, you would have definitely had him. But at the same time, I think at that time, everybody was looking at him. All the top six were looking at him. They were probably looking at him from abroad as well. And he sort of missed the boat. He lost his game. He lost his mojo. I don't think the relationship, as I say, with Leicester and Leicester supporters was the best in the world. He came back again, and towards the tail end of last season, started playing well again. But I just get the impression, not only the relationship between Maddison and Leicester, but also, of course, financially, Leicester look like they're trying to rebuild. Leicester look like a football club who, Vardy is no spring chicken. Ayoze Perez hasn't really sorted it out. Tielemans has been linked away. Now Maddison's been linked. They look like a club who were in the process of renegotiating and rejigging their football club. And as a result, I would imagine there's every chance that they would look at taking in the options of a deal for James Maddison from somebody like Newcastle United. The fear that you have is, as you said already, if they've rejected one bid of 40 million, I certainly wouldn't be prepared to start going daft with James Maddison. As I say, he was a huge player, a very, very good player a couple of years ago. And at that time, 40 million was probably at least beyond the right sort of pay scale, probably even more than that. But is he still the player that he was? Do you sort of put a question mark against his attitude? I don't know. The bottom line is, they always say, if it's a player who strengthens your squad, if he makes you better than the squad that you've got, then that is right. And as far as I'm concerned, he is undoubtedly better than the majority of anybody we've got in midfield. With the exception of Bruno, he would be a standout midfield player. So my bottom line is, I hope they could get him. And I would like to see him at Newcastle United without a doubt.
Yeah, me too. I go back to last transfer window. It's the player that I said I would love to see come through the doors. I thought it was a doable deal. Leicester certainly need to sell, and I would prefer him to Paqueta. I don't know a great deal about Paqueta, and from my point of view, that would be the player to sign. Corney has been mentioned again, Mick. I mean, we talk about putting the transfer clause in for this guy. Putting the £17 million bid in, which means that it activates the transfer clause. What's your take on him?
Well, never mind it be Cornet, whether it be Paqueta, it goes back to everything we talked about in January, and it's more evidence of, we've not known this ownership at Newcastle, and we haven't known Eddie Howe for too long now. we're fledgling, in our relationships with our ownership and Eddie Howe. They've only been there 8, 9, 10 months now. So, we don't know what sort of people they're like, and what sort of people and what sort of deals they're likely to do. But what we know on the basis of January is that Eddie Howe was very, very keen to put in Premier League players who know Premier League football. And James Maddison fits that bill way, way more than the Cornets or the Paquetas or the X, Ys and Zs than that. So, my thought of Cornet is he's just another name. And certainly because he's a striker, and certainly because we need goals, we will be linked with every Tom, Dick and Harry. We will, right until September the 1st, if it takes until September the 1st. Because, again, more evidence last night against Atalanta. We're toothless. We're absolutely toothless. We have been in pre-season. Eddie Howe knows it. We all know it. It's bleedingly obvious. So forget Maddison, forget Sven Botman, forget Matt Targett, forget Nick Pope, forget all the deals that have been done or may well be doing. The one that will always glaringly look at us and make us think, who are we going to get? What are we going to do? It's the striker. So Cornet's just the latest one. It's an easy story to write. He's not a huge amount of money, etc., etc. He does have an evidence of Premier League football, so he has played in this country, but leaves me cold. I have to say, I don't know enough about the lad. I would like to see more of him. He's been playing. The bottom line is he's been playing at a football club that's just been relegated from the Premier League. Now, sometimes that works in your favour, and sometimes that is misleading in terms of, is that necessarily a good player or a bad player? But at the same time, it's just another name. It's just another name. Maddison is the more important name. Because Maddison will score you goals as well. I mean,
how much do you think he's worth, DSS? How much do you think he's worth?
Who?
Maddison.
Maddison. I as I said there, I think once upon a time, you would probably expect to probably get 40, 50 million and possibly plus, because he's only 25 years of age. He was an England international. I mean, he's only had the one cap, but he was a real superstar 18 months, 2 years ago. Lost his way. So I think at this minute in time, I wouldn't be. I don't know. Let me think. I think they could probably push it a touch, but I can't imagine them spending in excess of £50 million. I think if you got him at something around about the 40 million mark, the same sort of money that you're talking about Bruno, the sort of money you could talk about Sven Botman, there is an argument, and there will be an argument on Leicester City's part, that if you bear in mind how good Maddison was, how good potentially Maddison still could be, then he's worth more than Botman, and he's worth more. People might not like this, but I think he's a better player than Bruno, as he was in his heyday 18 months ago.
Is this a marquee signing?
In a way, yes. In a way, without a doubt. And again, it goes back to where he was. I mean, there was nobody not talking about James Maddison 2 years ago. Really, Steve. We were all doing it. I couldn't believe some of the players who were being pulled on for England shirts and playing, England for Gareth Southgate, when this lad was absolutely, he was a worldie for 6 months a year. He was a top player. So yeah, absolutely. Yes, not marquee in the strictest sense of the world. He's not a Ronaldo. He's not a Shearer from '96, but he is a top. He will excite people. He'll excite people in the way that Just think about the thought of Bruno and Maddison side by side in your midfield. I mean, that is exciting.
No, it is. No, there's no doubt about it. They are looking for a goalkeeper. Somebody's mentioned in the chat. Somebody's saying, could we use the Dubravka disappointment if we're bringing Pope in as number one as part of the deal? I think they'll be looking for straight cash, Mick.
Well, you say that. I mean, you could also say that their fears of Newcastle United might be the fact that didn't they? I think it was 40 million for Jose Perez, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, they found themselves on the receiving end of a right kicking by Newcastle financially from Jose Perez. So they might not be jumping around to sort of sign another Newcastle player. You're right. I mean, Kasper Schmeichel is on his way, I think, to France. So they need a goalkeeper. But goalkeepers and James Maddison. It's chalk and cheese. You're not talking about the same deal. You're not talking about the comparable in terms of who you think might be in terms of helping the deal on its way. I think what you need to do is you need to sort out the fact that regardless of what Leicester want, what Leicester need, what Newcastle need at this minute in time is a couple of top players. And if they can get him, and it is a big if, Steve. I mean, I'm now getting to the stage. I'm looking at my watch here. It's 10:10. We've really blazed a trail and raised up everybody's thoughts about Maddison for 10 minutes. It might not happen. And my old case, Sarah. Let's just see. But it is exciting. And I must admit, when I saw it first thing this morning, you see 30% of mentions and you think not a chance. You see 60% and you say no, I can't see it. As soon as I saw the Maddison thing, I thought, ooh, that's a chance. That is a chance. So let's wait and see.
Yeah, look, there's plenty of time to go in the transfer window, and Eddie Howe last night as well said that we won't be pushed. I mean, Craig Hope, essentially, for me, it's
what was very interesting, Steve. Having said there that I sort of got a little bit excited about Maddison. I also read the same quotes from Eddie Howe last night after the Atalanta game. Now, whether Eddie Howe is playing poker, whether Eddie Howe was unbeknown, whether this is something that happened overnight, but it doesn't matter whether it's not Craig Hope, because Craig Hope's just in a press conference. He hasn't told anything that anybody else knows. Everybody else was saying the same last night. You name any journalist last night, they all said exactly the same, because they were doing the press conference in which Eddie Howe said, I don't expect anybody coming in, or we don't expect anybody coming in before the Forest game. So, only that was only last night, and those were direct quotes from Eddie Howe. So, again, going back to the Maddison thing, let's not get too excited, because we had our own manager last night telling us he didn't expect anything happening in the foreseeable future. As I say, he might be playing poker. We don't know.
Yeah, and if he is, he's got a good poker face. The quote he said was never say never, but as the days tick by, it looks more unlikely that there'll be a signing by Forest. I probably wouldn't have hoped to be in that situation, i.e. no attack and signing. But the most important thing is we get the right players, not the speed. We get them.
Yeah, exactly. Which having done it often enough, that leads me to believe. And as I say, we could call him poker face, we could call him whatever you like, but Eddie Howe, I think, is a responsible and a very respectful in terms of his supporter group. I don't think he would be playing silly buggers. I think he genuinely thought that there probably isn't a likelihood that somebody will come in before Forest. So maybe it's a fledgling piece of information and transfer that is moving, but is moving very, very slowly, Maddison. It might be completely. These things come and go, and people just make these things up half the time. So let's just wait and see.
Yeah, there's an abundance of Twitter in the nose, which cause a lot of distraction. Some of them are people who are genuinely Newcastle fans. Some of them are people who are based in foreign countries who just get traction off the back of these rumours that they like to put around. But in the grand scheme of things, this is what the transfer window is all about. And I gave up counting. I think we said it was something like 681 players that we'd been linked with.
So
we stopped counting.
Never mind the Twitterati, Steve. some of them, and lots of them are journalists as well. So don't worry about that. Lots of them are agents. Lots of them are football players. Lots of them are football owners. Everybody's playing the game, and the only people who suffer are poor buggers like supporters who get messed around by all sorts of people who, for all sorts of reasons, are messing about. So,
and as you know, I tend not to watch or do the transfer window, and it's only because I do this show. Even last year, I didn't entertain it, but this year I said, I'm going to break tradition. I'm going to do it on the show. We even have a transfer show. And honestly, mate, and now I know why I didn't do it, because it absolutely batters your head. And,
it does.
Honestly, you get loads of content, but it's none of it's true.
It was almost better back in the day, because there was no point, because we didn't have any money anyway. Well,
I tell you, at least you knew where you stood with Mike Ashley. You weren't getting anybody.
Exactly.
Unless they were free and on the last day of the transfer window. Tim McDougall says, getting Maddison significantly weakens a rival. Buying Paqueta does not. Strategy that we have seen before, ? Which, it does. And Leicester are certainly going to have to sell. I still think, I'm not a betting man, as people know, but I still think there's a deal to be done with Dominic Calvert-Lewin at the end of the transfer window, and I still think we could see him moving to Newcastle, and that takes us on to it segues us into this loan thing that came out.
Can I just ask you about that one for a second? Because you say you're not a betting man. I am a betting man, and has been a betting man. And going back to what you said about Leicester there, I checked the odds again last night. And we are comfortably on any booking market 7 top favourites to win the Premier League. Now, when I say we are 7 top favourites, we are 100 to 1 shots, 150 to 1 shots. But basically, everybody has conceded. The bookies have conceded that outside of the top 6, the big 6, we are the next best thing in terms of buying the Premier League. So we are, as far as the bookies are concerned, shorter odds, although they are very long odds. We are shorter odds than West Ham, blah, and including Leicester City. And that was another one of my thoughts last night. When I saw the Maddison thing, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, how if as I say, because my brother-in-law is a 40-year-old season ticket holder at Leicester. If I was a Leicester fan, I'd be thinking, what are we doing here? Hang on a minute. We were Premier League champions. We're FA Cup winners. We've been in Europe for a couple of seasons. And now we're giving away some of the gems to a team and a football club who are in danger of nudging us out of the spot for 7th or potentially 6th or maybe 8th or maybe 9th. But there or thereabouts, they are, Leicester City, running the risk of improving the prospects of Newcastle United. Again, going back to let's wait and see, that surprises me a little bit. Let's put it this way. If it was reversed, Steve, and if we were Newcastle and we'd just won a Premier League and we'd just won an FA Cup and we'd been in Europe, but we were wobbling a little bit, and all of a sudden we gave away Bruno and sent him to Leicester, you'd be up in arms. So as much as I say, maybe that is part of the relationship breakdown between Leicester and Maddison and Leicester fans and Maddison. Maybe that's part and parcel of that.
Yeah, I would agree. Look, this loan situation that developed this week, Mick, with one of the newspapers choosing to say that Newcastle was skint. I mean, talk about clickbait and sensational journalism. It was ludicrous, but interesting way to do things. And again,
just clever. Clever.
Yeah,
it's clever. Just clever. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, let's be honest. Who doesn't have a loan? Everybody in the world has a loan of some description. Now, do people ridicule you if you buy a fridge and send and buy it on the Never or whatever? It's clever. It's clever. And don't forget, as we said last week, Steve, Newcastle have lost their way completely because of Mike Ashley. That top 6 that we've just talked about there, they've got a 10-year lead on Newcastle from the money that they've picked up from Sky, the money that they've picked up from TV, the money that they've picked up from sponsorship, they've picked up from commercial revenue, the commercial they've kicked up from a European football, all of that money that we've lost because we stagnated under Mike Ashley for 14 years, we need to try and push the money back in. We need to push the kitty a little bit further, and that's all that's done. And that's a clever way of doing it. It shouldn't be seen to be desperation. It shouldn't be seen to be underhand. It is a perfectly logical way to help yourself of raising your funds and raising your kitty and to try and buy more players. It makes sense. I mean, the one thing that we all know about these new ownership is they're clever people when it comes to finance. So let's not worry about that. Yes, we might end up worrying about what we do with our manager or what we do with our centre forward or what we do with our centre back. But let's never worry about what we're doing financially, because they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And, long may it continue. Paul says he's not enthused by Maddison, to be fair, but he represents better value for money than Harrison from Leeds. Good shout, that, mate. Good shout. We did have a couple of questions, but we'll come back to Simon's in a minute. He says, Peter Robertson says, in my honest opinion, a striker is an absolute must before the end of the window, as I'm sorry, but Wood isn't good enough. Back up to Wilson. If we lose Wilson, we are in big trouble. Yeah, look, I was at the game last night. Not sure whether you watched it on NUFC.
I watched it, yeah.
Okay, so my impression of that game last night was simple. It's a typical pre-season friendly. The aim, as I put out on Twitter earlier this morning, for pre-season friendlies is for fitness, is to find formation, it's to find partnerships, and it's to create the bond in the dressing room, which is the most important thing, which gets you through the highs and lows of a season. So for me personally, I know what I'm expecting when I go to St James's Park for those games. 40,000 people there, by the way. Incredible. But Peter Robson's point about the striker options, the way that side was set up last night, you look at that starting lineup, for me, what I got out of that was, where are we going to be if we lose our best creative players and our striker? And it told me exactly what I knew and what we've already discussed on the show today, which is we are painfully short up front. Chris Wood can't play up front on his own. He needs to play in a two. No matter how much Miggy Almiron runs around, he's not going to score you 10 goals. And ultimately, for me, it just shows up the bare problem that we've got. We've got nobody up front, and I've got to be honest. I had my heart was in my mouth when Trippier went down. Trippier and Target went down on separate occasions, and they were down for a long time. And I had literally had my head in my hands when Trippier went down. I went, please God, no. But yeah, it just summed it up, didn't it, Mick? I mean, you watch those games, and people saying, I think I saw a couple of people say that their standout player was Elliot Anderson. Look, the kid had a decent game. At times he didn't seem to want to get involved, or the players didn't involve him.
He's a young boy, Steve. He's a young boy.
He is, but I can see why people thought he was good. Ryan Fraser ran himself into the ground as usual. Miggy Almiron was very busy, but without really any end product. Chris Wood held the line and held the ball up and did what he could. Service to him wasn't great, and the problem is when you're playing a long ball in, Mick, if you're not playing in a two, it's got to be pinpoint. It's got to be on his head to at least give the kid a chance. But I don't know. I'm looking for something different today, and we're going to get it, because we're going to probably see more of the A team today. But what was your thoughts on the game last night?
My overwhelming thought is, and this isn't in any way critical of the football club, but I do find it puzzling, and I do find it a little bit head scratching. What are we doing playing back-to-back pre-season games on a Friday night and a Saturday, which, as much as anything, gives Eddie Howe more of a problem than a benefit in terms of Nottingham Forest? Let me give you an example. For year after year after year after year now, this doesn't mean that you have to stick this way, and that has to be the way that pre-season's always done and forever in the day it will ever always be the way. I mean, Nottingham Forest are playing Valencia today, but pretty much what the case was that your pre-season would negotiate its way through 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever, and then you would have your flagship pre-season friendly, last penultimate weekend of the season, more often than not at home, unless of course you were doing some work at the stadium or whatever. You'd get a crowd in, you'd get your new transfers in, you'd sell a few shirts, you'd do this, that, and the other. There was a serious side of things because it would be a proper game against a decent side, as Newcastle have thrown in today against Bilbao. But the whole idea was, to all intents and purposes, give the fans, to a lesser extent, but more importantly, give the manager and give the team an idea of what 7 days away from the Premier League was going to create and was going to do. Now, so I suddenly thought to myself, what's he going to do, Eddie Howe, against Atalanta on the Friday night? And the general consensus of most people that I met and spoke to were saying he would play his flagship team on the Friday night and give them a breather and play them against Forest. So what did he do? He mix and matches. So he plays fundamentally probably 5 or maybe 6 of the team last night, and presumably today will play presumably Botman and Lascelles at centre-back. Now, there seems to be increasingly an argument that Lascelles will start the game against Forest now that he's captaincy. Callum Wilson, obviously, today will start the game against Forest. St. Maximin will start the game tonight and start the game against Nottingham Forest. But I don't really understand how this helps our conditioning for Forest on the Saturday. And I'll bear a considerable amount of money that Forest against Valencia today will play just about their starting 11 to play Newcastle in a week's time, as will many other teams in the Premier League today. So that was my biggest undermining question. Why did we choose to do what we chose to do? Now, did we do it because 2 lots of 50,000 makes £80,000 worth of money, etc., whether we got a bit greedy, whether we wanted to help the fans, whether Eddie Howe wanted 2 back-to-back against decent sides? I mean, an 8th Serie A side against a decent Spanish side. Did he help them? I just didn't feel it helped me, and it didn't help the fans, and it didn't help you, I'm sure, because I can see you nodding your head. And I'm sure it, in a way, I'm not sure it helped Eddie Howe either. So I don't really know where we are. I mean, it's almost you're creating more problems than more solutions, because all of a sudden, Almiron, who for once upon a time I wouldn't touch with a barge pole, I now find it very, very difficult because of the lack of goals that we score these days, and the fact that the kid has played very, very, very well and played decently again last night and probably could have scored last night. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, Almiron's got to go in against Forest. The centre-back situation, there's been no real continuity and no idea as to who was playing. So maybe, again, Eddie Howe is unsure about that. The Shelvey situation has confused it because he's now injured. So in an ideal world, what I'm saying is that normally on a Saturday afternoon, 7 days away from the Premier League, we're all sitting there and we could all probably pick 9 or 10 out of 11. I'm now thinking I'm getting closer to 8 and 9 rather than 10 or 11.
We're going to pick our 11 before the end of the program. We're going to give it a go. We're going to have a guess at what we're going to be. Maybe Eddie doesn't know his first 11 yet, says Karen, which is
absolutely.
Which is a good point. Yeah, 100%. And obviously, some of these friendlies, when players get injured or they're out or unavailable, it makes it a little bit easier for Eddie to make his mind up. But we'll give the sponsors a shout out. Big thank you to Spider Miner. Worldwide coverage from the lads, the only cryptocurrency miner that can mine 5 different cryptocurrencies at the same time whilst using virtually no energy, and it's VPN protected. Buy yours now at www.miner.spidervpn.org. Thanks to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245. And to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com, now open on Nunn Street. Thanks to Away Day Clothing. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Walls and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. John actually starred on the show last night, so if you get onto the Three Amigos, the man with no identity showed himself last night, so it was good to see him on this. Good to see him on the show. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's, sauces handmade in Cumbria. You can find out more about them on Mr. Vicky's website, which is mrvickies.co.uk, 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology and the podcasts. If you want to subscribe to the show, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner. You can subscribe for free. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the thumb up under the video to like it, which is a big help to us, and click share to share to your other social media. We are available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to join the channel, click join underneath the video or go to the website, nufcmatters.com. You can use the QR code and it takes you straight to the membership pack part of the website, when you can get a cup, a pen, a scarf, and a membership card and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, we do give away a free car sticker to those of you who subscribe, which is free. Just email john@nufcmatters.com to get your free car sticker. The food bank stall will be outside St James's Park behind Gallagher today. Steve Hasty, Bill Corcoran, and all the lads will be there, and lasses, so get yourself along if you've got any donations to make. If you can't make the game, donate at the Matchday Bucket, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. And you've still got time to enter the NUFC Matters Super 6 score predictor. Join the Matters gang and enter into our own league. £10 per entry for the season. Cash prize winner every month. Exclusive Manager of the Month t-shirt. Cash prize for the overall season winner. And a trophy and Manager of the Year t-shirt. Sign up now at nufcmatters.com. And it was a big success last week at the Peter Beardsley Soccer School. And Monday night training and the August summer camp booking's been taken now. Just go to peterbeardsleysoccerschool.com for more information about that. Okay, let's get to a few of your questions, which I've kept back. And what was the stadium like last night? What had been done, says Alan White. It was nice, mate. I mean, I was in the Platinum Club. I went up with John and Keith Patterson, Steve Hasty. We were all sitting together, which is when the friendlies, you get a chance to go and sit in a different part of the ground. We did go to the Platinum Club. No real change in there, I've got to be said. More staff behind the bar, which was great. But still the same old photograph in the gold frame of Rule Fox playing a meaningless game against Aston Villa. That was the big thing for me. The same pictures hanging up, I'm afraid, and Andy Cole's photograph is still in there. The two really.
No. You have to keep the Andy Cole.
I'm not being funny, mate, but the horrendous, the frames. They need to sort that out in the Platinum Club. In other parts of the ground, photographs courtesy of NewcastleWorld.com. There has been some significant changes. You know, the floors have been.
I've seen the pictures, yeah,
and that is fantastic. Just a little a little tribute to Pavel's top and Pavel Cernacek. And look. It'll take time. Rome wasn't built in a day.
No.
But Alan, the stadium itself, 40,000 Newcastle fans in there for a friendly on a Friday night. And yet we know a lot of these people probably won't be able to get to the games because they're locked out now. No tickets available. But that was fantastic. And I'm expecting a similar crowd today. It shows you that there's a real buzz around the ground, and that is fantastic.
And it helps. And it helps as well. I mean, I watched Eddie Howe's interview on NUFC TV afterwards, and you know, it's great. I mean, I'm sure, bless him, he would love to beat Atalanta 2 or 3-0, and from a Forest perspective, from a Premier League perspective, from a pre-season perspective, you know, he wants his team to be up and running. He wants, you know, but I think first and foremost, I just got the impression again that he's such a proper fella that he just felt a little bit, you know, there's 40,000 here and we haven't really put it in. And I think also there's that slight worry, isn't there, about, you know, you think to yourself, it's all well and good creating 40,000, but it just ups the ante in terms of players. I mean, you mentioned him earlier about Chris Wood. I mean, regardless of the fact that he's not scoring goals, the lad, bless him, looks absolutely terrified at the minute. He looks absolutely terrified. He's really struggling in terms of confidence, and it doesn't help when you're trying to get yourself ready for the season. You're trying to get yourself ready for the Premier League. You're trying yourself to score goals at Premier League level. So you think, right, okay, I'll score a few goals in pre-season. Well, not only are you not scoring in pre-season, but there's 40,000 people watching. It's a bit like being a singer, and your voice is going a bit, and you're not quite as good, but you think, I'm all right. I'll just be on at the wheel tappers and shunters, and I'll get used to it. I'll get me vocal cords going, and then all of a sudden, 40,000 people turn up at the Royal Albert Hall, and you think, oh my God, So it is a double-edged sword. It's fantastic to see the fans. The fans obviously do their utmost to raise the levels of the players, but there will be one or two players thinking, "Oh dear me, this isn't helping. This isn't helping because I'm just terrified at this minute in time of making a mistake or not scoring a goal or whatever." It's a tough one.
Yeah. It is. It is very tough. What are the questions that we've got? Mad Mark says, if you were at the game last night, you could see the team lack creativity in the middle of the pitch. Without either Bruno or Shelby playing, we have nothing yet. That's why they're going for Maddison. And Kenny Ranson asked, do you think we're putting a bid in for Maddison to try and shake up, those who are representing Paqueta? I don't think that's the case. I think we're genuinely chasing Maddison.
Well, it goes what I said right at the top of the program, Steve, and that is the in terms of signing players, in terms of your squad, in terms of how managers deal with these sort of situations. The bottom line is always, if you can get somebody into your squad that is better than the players you already have, then that is the bottom. And James Maddison, with the exception of Bruno, is head and shoulders, or would be, or will be, head and shoulders better than anybody we have at this minute in time. Joe Willock, Longstaff, John Joe Shelby. Once upon a time he was a good player and is still a decent player. And I'm disappointed that he's picked up an injury, because I still think there would have been a part of me think maybe starts against Forest, but obviously that's not going to happen. But then you look at young Elliott Anderson, who's come in. James Maddison is an absolute stretch above any of these. He's a top player. So it really is a whole afternoon and a whole day and a whole week of fingers crossed. Because if we could get that deal, that would be a huge deal. It would be a huge deal.
Few people in the chat asking us what we thought of Zapata. I just think, no, not for me, mate.
No.
Not for me.
No. I mean, again, it's wrong. It's wrong to sort of prejudge people because of pre-season friendlies and what's happening. I mean, they had one or two players had one or two nice things. But they're not. They're just going through the motions. I mean, they are essentially. It was played at a decent pace. It was played at a different level, and I think Eddie Howe was grateful of that. The fact that it was better than the pre-seasons, particularly the ones in Germany. Benfica were pretty good first half, and we did very well to survive as well as we did against Benfica for certainly in the opening 45. But that was decent last night, and they moved the ball around, the Italians, and certainly gave Newcastle, a better test than they've had against 1860 Mainz. Probably, I mean, first half, as I say, against Benfica, they were very, very good, but it was a slightly different scenario because of the Eusebio Cup, etc. But no, there was nobody outstanding in that Atalanta side who you would think, oh dear, somebody lock the dressing room door and keep him in until next Friday.
Terry Murphy says, Steve, with all due respect regarding players coming in, and although I tend to agree with you, you keep saying plenty of time. It's starting to shrink a bit by a bit, or am I just a worrier? Terry, there's nothing wrong with worrying, mate. We've had years of that, but look, there is plenty of time. 1st of September is when the transfer window shuts. I genuinely think we will. I genuinely think we'll have at least another couple in, and I think there'll be a few more out as well. So we will wait and see. Okay, look, we build this really as a show for Mick and I to pick our starting 11 for the Forest game next week, and I think we could probably both give it a pretty good shot. And there's a few people in the chat have already given us their team, so just to whet the appetite. Simon Davies says Pope in goal. Then he's got Trippier, Shaw, Botman, and Target. He's got Joe Linton, Bruno, Willock, and then he's got Miggy, Wilson, and ESM. And 5 subs to be used. He's got Anderson, Fraser, Byrne, Wood, and Sean Longstaff. And then Mark Randall's gone for Pope in goal, Trips, Shaw, Botman, Target. And then he's gone Bruno, Sean, Longstaff, Joe Linton, Miggy, Wilson, and ESM. So, yeah, I don't think there's going to be massive changes, Mick. Mick. So, goalkeeper, Mick, for you.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, and I think we can pretty much take it as read, especially as much as anything now, because don't forget, Dubravka was injured. I don't know what his situation is medically at the minute, but obviously he missed the Benfica game. He missed last night's game as well. So Dubravka at this moment in time is missing in action. So there is no option. But I don't think there was absolutely any way that Nick Pope would be anything other than first choice keeper against Forest. It's too big a deal. I mean, there will be conversations before the deal was done by Nick Pope saying, well, yes, I'll leave Burnley. Yes, I'll come and play with you at St James's Park, but I need to play first team football on top of everything else. Not only are you looking to be an England goalkeeper, you're looking to go to a World Cup finals in 4 months' time. So, Qatar, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle United, it all blends together, and it all pops up with Nick Pope. And the other factor is as well, and I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but everybody will be just as well aware of this. I mean, can you imagine, bearing in mind Henderson is at Forest, and Henderson was being linked up with Newcastle not only in January but also in the summer in terms of potentially a goalkeeper at St James's. Imagine if Nick Pope's told not only is Dubravka behind the sticks, but the guy down the other end of the pitch is Henderson playing for Nottingham Forest. Wouldn't happen, would it? It can't happen. So I think it will be Pope and Henderson on either side, one at the Gallagher, one at the Leazes, and they will be the two goalkeepers. But Nick Pope will be, I'm pretty sure, Newcastle United's keeper.
Okay, look at your back line, Mick. What's your back for?
Well, the two fullbacks, again, it's glaringly obvious, isn't it? I mean, Matt Targett did very, very well last season. At one time, I think we were all convinced, we were all a little bit worried because his body language and the club seemed a little bit reminiscent of one or two other deals in the past that just haven't been seen and haven't seen their way through. But they got him in the end from Aston Villa. So, he sticks in at left back. The one that I've been a little bit surprised with, and I hear people, Trippier this, Trippier that, Trippier this, Trippier that. Fantastic player, fantastic, established right fullback. But I don't think he's been great in pre-season. I really don't. The two games against the Germans, he gave away a goal in that. There was that famous incident about him apologising to the rest of the squad because he knew he'd dropped a rick. He dropped a couple of ricks against Benfica as well. He got the knock last night. I don't think it's been the most ideal preparation in terms of right fullback for Kieran Trippier. But the bottom line is Kieran Trippier is Kieran Trippier. Last night when he picked up a knock, you think, is he gonna run it through? Of course he's going to run it through. So so Kieran Trippier plays at right back. Centre back, of course, Sven Botman will play because Sven Botman's cost £30 million. And clearly, again, I've always been of the impression that when they put him back from one side in January and said, look, the deal will be done in the summer. You will be coming to Newcastle, and Sven Botman duly did arrive. Now, this is really interesting now, because the one that's really thrown me completely is the number of people who start telling me now that Jamal Lascelles, because he's captain and because he's right-sided, could well play alongside Sven Botman at centre-back. Now, and if you said to me, do you think it's ridiculous? No, I wouldn't, because again, I'm talking about Eddie Howe's loyalty, the fact that Eddie Howe has said what he said about Jamal Lascelles, the fact that he likes, band of brothers, that old cliche, blah, blah, blah. But I can't see it. I really can't see it. I think it just comes down to whether he plays Dan Burn as another lefty or whether he plays Fabian Schär. And I think I've just got to go with Fabian Schär because he is right-sided, because he's improved, and as well as Dan Burns played, and he was fantastic at the end of last season. I mean, I watched the goal against Benfica late on. It wasn't very clever. It wasn't clever at all. So I would have Schär and Botman in at centre back. So that would be my back four: Trippier, Schär, Botman, and Targett.
Okay, well, me and you have gone for exactly the same goalkeeper and gone for exactly the same back four.
Yeah.
So I don't need to recap, but that's exactly where I would go for against Forest, mate.
Okay. The midfield, again, we will all have picked, and everybody will have picked Bruno. Now, the rest is very interesting. Again, because Shelvey is injured, I did have a temptation to go on him, and then, I mean, Almiron is another one who is has just done himself just the power of good. And the thing about Almiron is it's not the fact that he's played well and the fact that he's really proved me wrong. It looks like another case of Joe Linton, where Eddie Howe has somehow managed to pluck a player out of somebody who looked dead and buried. I just thought he was surplus to requirements. And what I would say as well is that Joe Linton, for as well as he's improved, I'm still not convinced about what Joe Linton does in terms of his benefits as a player. I know he works hard and people love him, and he's a kicker and a baller, and he tries this and he tries that, but he gives away too many free kicks. The sending off against Benfica was ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. He wiped out one of the kids against the Germans as well, and he doesn't contribute anything constructive a lot of the time. Now, Almiron, on the other side, has now A, turned into a player, but B, has a talent. He genuinely has a talent, and he has a pace, and he has a work ethic as well. So Almiron is the one who really, really, to me, is giving me a real headache. And I'm just wondering as well, again, this might be completely on a tangent, but the fact that Darren Eales is suddenly at the football club, who was at Atlanta with Miguel Almiron. So he's got a friend there. He's got somebody at the football club who's an important member at the football club. And maybe if Darren Eales has had a quiet word with Almiron, and Almiron has said, "Oh, I like him. Yes, he did the deal and he got me to Newcastle United, but he was very good for me. He looked after me, etc., etc." So maybe Eales is part of the Almiron relationship, because Almiron, he's just a different animal. He's much better, not only more improved, but much better than Joe Linton. Joe Linton has improved, but I don't think he's a threat for an opposition. He doesn't score goals. He doesn't create an awful lot. Almiron, to me, is very, very, very dangerous at this minute in time. So I think I'd have to go with Bruno in midfield, and I would go with Sean Longstaff. I'm going to put Sean Longstaff in. And the reason I'm going to put Sean Longstaff in is because I think He's tidy. There's a player at Nottingham Forest called Ryan Yates. I think Ryan Yates will start for Nottingham Forest. And Ryan Yates and Sean Longstaff, very similar. Longstaff's a better player than Yates, but I think he could do a job for Ryan Yates, Sean Longstaff. So I might just put him in even almost as a man for man. Might have got this completely wrong, but I would put Sean Longstaff in, and I would put Joe Linton in. So I would go Longstaff, Bruno, and Joe Linton, and then my front three, which I was going to change, but I'm now going to go with Ryan Fraser, Callum Wilson, and St. Maximin. But I would love to find a place for Almiron. I really would. I thought about playing Almiron with St. Maximin and Wilson and put Ryan Fraser in midfield. So any three from Longstaff, Fraser, Bruno, and Joe Linton. But I'll leave Almiron out. But that's tough, and I probably will change my mind halfway through the game.
It's such a tough one, isn't it? It's such a tough, and you can see why probably Eddie Howe is struggling, because there is a few problems. There's a few conundrums, and I would have played Shelby. I would have played Shelby, Bruno, and another, and then I would have played St. Maximum, Wilson, and another, probably with Ryan Fraser. But it is what I thought at one time would be certainly 9 or 10 from 11. As I said before, is now almost 8, 9, 10, and 11. It's tough. Oh, there's no doubt about it. It is really, really tough to pick that team.
What's your 11?
Do you think? But before I come to that, do you think ESM has earned his chance because of that pre-season?
Without a doubt, and I think we made the point again when I think you asked me about would you keep him, would you leave him, would you stop, would you stay, would you sell him, would you keep him? He's too much of a talent. He's too much of a talent. Absolutely too much of a talent, and he will score a goal. And going back to the whole business about until we find a goal scorer, regardless of whether Callum Wilson is fit or not fit, considering whether he's available or he's not available, you still can't have just one man. Alan Shearer went the odd game without scoring, and he's the best in the business. The Henrys, the Wrights of this world, who were more prolific goal scorers than Callum Wilson. But you can't do it by yourself. So it's all well and good saying, "Oh, don't worry about it. Callum Wilson will play, 35 games." But you still need more than that. So that's why, as I say about Almiron, Almiron's got all these goals in pre-season, and he looks a threat. He genuinely looks a threat. I'll change my mind in about 5 minutes and pick Almiron. I'm very, very close to it because he looks clever all of a sudden. The goals he scored against Benfica, the way last night where he stood the ball up, he stood a defender up, he moved him to one side, clipped it, goalkeeper saved it with his legs. But those were the sorts of things that Almiron never did. He got a nosebleed once upon a time. Now he looks like a proper player again, Almiron. So regardless of whether it's Almiron or whoever it is, you need St. Maximin, because you need St. Maximin to give Wilson a chance and also to give Newcastle goals. And there's not many in that team. Going through that 11 I've just picked, yes, Bruno has chipped in a few, but you can't rely on him. He's a midfield player. Ryan Fraser doesn't really going to score you goals. So you need St. Maximin to help Callum Wilson. So absolutely no doubt.
Right, there's to start to go. My team, right, would have Botman in, not Burn. Yeah. But my prediction for Forest next week is Pope in goal. Yeah. I've got Trippier, I've got Shaw, I've got Burn, I've got Target.
You haven't got Botman.
I think he's going to. I would like to play Botman, but my prediction will be, and I think somebody mentioned in the chat, he will do with Botman what he did with
Bruno. He did with Bruno. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
So my prediction for next week is Burn will start with Shaw. So we saw last night we saw last night that centre half, that back four last night and goalkeeper is what we'll start with. I think.
Okay.
I think then you've got your midfield. I think ASM will start. I think Bruno will start. I think Big Joe will start.
Yeah.
I think you've got Longstaff in there as well. So that means Joe Linton will get pushed onto the left. Maybe. You've got Miggy, I think, and Wilson. I think Miggy's earned his place.
So no Ryan Fraser, yeah.
I think Fraser will be the fall guy. I think he's a great impact player.
Yeah.
And then I think you'll see, unless the new striker comes in before next week, which I don't think he will, then I personally feel Wood will come on to cement games. I think if we can get ourselves into a winning position against Notts Forest, let's say we get a 2-goal lead and we've got 10 minutes to go, I think he takes Wilson off. There's no need to risk him any further, and he puts Wood on and he just closes the game down. But look, it's all about opinions. We've got a few teams. Simon Davies' team, I think I'd already said, but Pope, Trippier, Shaw, Botman, Target, Joe Linton, Bruno, Willock, Miggy, Wilson. Yeah, we gave that one earlier. Mark Randall's as well. Just to remind you, Pope, Trippier, Shaw, Botman, Target, Bruno, Sean, Big Joe, Miggy, Wilson, ASM. Lots of people coming up with pretty much the same teams, I think.
You see, I get completely your argument, and I think your argument is well respected and well intended. The bit about burn for Botman, right? Because we all know, what we know enough about Eddie Howe is that loyalty business, and I get that back four that did so well for him with Byrne and Shah and Trippier and Target is worth its opportunity to do again and go again at the start of next season. And as with Bruno, who was a big money signing, he put him to one side, as he'll put away Botman one side. My argument to that, Steve, is that what about the goalkeeper there? Because the goalkeeper did brilliantly well for Newcastle, Dubravka. He's done nothing wrong. He was part of that band of brothers that had 9 games unbeaten, that did nothing wrong, blah. And just because Nick Pope for a fair amount of money is coming in, because he's a goalkeeper rather than an outfield player, is told he has to go back and he has to start. See, if you can't have Botman, you can't have Pope. If you can't have Pope, you can't have Botman, don't you? I don't know.
Lots of chat in there, in the chat, and as always, people are always going to disagree, but pretty much the same. It's between Botman and Byrne. Lots of people say that Chris Banks, good team, Steve, but Eddie will start Botman for sure. I mean, look, it's what it's all about.
Almiron's the one for me. I'd be interested to see if we took a straw poll now, does Almiron start or does Almiron not start? Then that would be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mick, as always, pleasure to speak to you, mate, today.
No worries.
And talking Newcastle United. We'll enjoy today's friendly, and then it's down to business next week. So I'll speak to you during the week. We'll sort out when to get you on for your pre-match predictions. Last word on this fella, mate. I did notice you tweeted this out. Terry Neill, just a couple of words just to finish the show. I'd like to dedicate the show to him today.
Absolutely. We worked together for 4 or 5 years in London. And what a player. I mean, we were blessed. That's myself and Jonathan Pearce. Terry Neill is on the right-hand side there. He was Arsenal's youngest captain at 20 and is still Arsenal's youngest captain. He then went on to be Arsenal manager at 34. He went on to become the first manager ever to manage both Arsenal and Tottenham Hotspur. He was manager of Northern Ireland. He was Northern Ireland captain. He won a famous goal at Wembley when Northern Ireland beat England by 1-0. But on top of that, he was a brilliant fella. And I was talking to Jonathan yesterday about it, because we used to travel up and down. We did the World Cup finals in 1990, and obviously Bobby Moore was the star, the superstar. But I tell you what, the guy, and Bobby Moore used to say, look at Terry. And Terry would just be himself. but Terry loved a night out and was a brilliant player, was a brilliant manager. I tell you, Don Howe, who was his sidekick at Arsenal, loved Terry Neill. Absolutely fantastic fella, proper footballer, and will be sadly miss. Sandra, his wife, and the two girls. My thoughts go out to them. But yeah, wherever you are, Terence, have a good one for me.
Mick, lovely way to finish. Take care, mate. Have a good week.
And
pal.
you, mate. See you later. Take care.